Hello and welcome to my presentation on classroom management in middle school classrooms. This photo I included just because I have a quick story to go with it, because I'm going to talk a lot about building relationships and how important that is when it comes to middle school classroom management. But I have this student who's right there at the top of the pyramid. This was the only group of 7th graders that actually successfully built a pyramid this size. But the student at the top who is beaming with pride actually has Tourette's, and he doesn't have a ton of friends, really doesn't do that well socially, and he's not super athletic. So I see him frustrated in my class a lot, and I've had a really hard time making a connection with him. And when he made it to the top of this pyramid and was so excited and was the reason pretty much why that group was the only successful 7th grade group to actually do this pyramid. It was such an awesome moment, and we've been buds since, and he's enjoyed coming to my class regardless of what it is we're doing. So I really appreciated this moment, so I wanted to make sure that I included it in the presentation. Okay, getting right to it. Classroom management is critically important during middle school because middle school is typically when most kids are most likely to experience declines in self-esteem and motivation. And as it says down there in bottom, I saw during some of my research that this is especially during 7th grade, which I actually see that occurring all the time in real life, where 6th grade students come in. They are super eager to do anything. They don't really care that much about what other people are thinking of them. They're much more themselves, whereas you can actually see the difference when they come in through the doors in 7th grade, that they're way more aware of what people are thinking of them. They don't want to be embarrassed. Sometimes their grades decline big time. You have to really push them to do some things. So I've definitely found this research to be particularly true. So it is really important that our classroom management styles engage our students and that we are engaging as teachers so that they will be engaged to really help keep that motivation going in your classroom, which definitely helps with classroom management. Middle schools were created because students at this grade level are very unique and they require different approaches to teaching. I'm actually going to give you a little bit of a history background from when I was doing this research. I found out all this cool info about the middle school movement, and it began because educators realized that students during early adolescence had different needs that needed to be met, and then junior high schools and middle schools were created as a result. The type of thinking that went into this really creative type of structure for these schools actually brought up the first homerooms. They were the first time homerooms were incorporated were in junior high schools and middle schools. First educational institutes to offer extracurricular activities, to have teacher advisories, and there was a lot of other innovations that came from the middle school movement. They were also geared towards providing a more gradual transition between elementary school and high school because there is such a stark difference between the two. And the major philosophies included building student-teacher relationships, which are incredibly important. That was actually the main foundation of all different, as the history of the middle school movement went through, was the importance of student-teacher relationships and how much better students do academically when they have strong relationships with their teachers. I've actually found some research, too, about how because of No Child Left Behind and all this testing, that middle schools and the concept of them were being under question because everything's so much geared towards testing, and a lot of districts have gone back to the K through 8 style, eliminating that middle school environment, which I think is tragic and sad because I think middle schools are such a special place, and it takes certain type of people to teach in the middle school and to be in that environment, and I just think that they deserve their own separate place. But research has found that students in K through 8 actually do better academically and on standardized test scores. So there is proof out there that the K through 8 model is better. But I think that it is important to keep middle schools as middle schools. And that is my rant, and I will move on. It is most definitely all about the relationships when it comes to middle school and middle school students. A study done in 2003 found that teachers had high-quality relationships. The teachers who had high-quality relationships with their students had 31% fewer discipline issues than teachers who did not have strong relationships, which I think makes a lot of sense. If you have a strong relationship and the students respect you, they are much more likely to be respectful in your class. Of course, there are exceptions to the rules with certain students, of course, but just brings me to my next slide, is that you cannot treat all of your students the same way. Not all the students are the same. You can't treat everyone's got to be a little bit different. So effective classroom managers employ different strategies with different types of students. And I found in my research that the quote is that teachers with effective classroom management skills are aware of high-needs students and have a repertoire of specific techniques for meeting some of their needs. I saw a really cool chart, too, that had categories, and I know we've covered this in class, but I think it's important to bring up, but the 5 different types of high-needs students. One is a passive student who might have a fear of relationships or fear of failure, aggressive students who are oppositional or hostile, students with attention problems who can be hyperactive and inattentive in our classroom, the perfectionist, which sometimes can be, as we've talked in class, can be worse than some of the other ones that I listed. And then the students who are socially inept, who do not really get social cues. You may only have 1 of these students per class. That's not usual, and I usually have 5 or 6, I feel like, in mine that all have different needs or that are high needs students. And you really need to develop different strategies to build relationships with these students and to kind of get on their level, because it's the only way you're going to be able to make it work for them and for you in your classroom. And middle school kids definitely want to feel understood, so it's really, really important to have the kids know that you have empathy for them. You have to put yourself in their shoes. Being in early adolescence was hard, and I think sometimes that we forget that when we're dealing with them. We just get frustrated. But we need to remember that middle school is a different, challenging time in early adolescence. So we should definitely try to make them feel understood, because they're trying to figure themselves out too at this point. And a great strategy that I saw was turning some of their negative behaviors into positive. And I actually have a great example of this, because there's a student in 7th grade, he was actually in that first picture, who was constant disruption, always telling jokes, super class clown, like needed to be laughed at. And one of the 7th grade teachers actually gave him 3 or 4 minutes at the end of class to do a stand-up routine, as long as it was, appropriate and everything. And he loves it. He does it all the time. I've actually been in the class covering for a class when he does this. And the other kids love it. He loves it, and it really limits the amount of distractions that he is bringing to the table. So that's definitely an excellent example of a way to turn some of the negative behaviors into positives. And then, of course, you have to have yourself set up for success. And these are some basics that you definitely learn in the beginning. But first week of school is a very critical time. You only have 1 chance to make a first impression. So what you do the first day definitely sets a tone that will carry you through the rest of the year. You can always pull back. You really can't add on. Once a kid thinks that you're like the easy whatever teacher, that they can get away with certain things in your classroom, they're going to do it. A lot of kids, especially kids in middle school, are going to jump onto that, and they're going to notice it. So you definitely need to explain your rules and procedures, and invite input from them. It's really worth hearing what the kids have to say and what's worked and what hasn't, and what they like and what they don't. Make it feel more democratic. Middle school kids love that. They want to be treated like adults. They're trying to act more grown up and act adult-like, so very important. Learn the kids' names. I know we've said that before, and that seems like a no-brainer to some people, but that can be so hard. I have 600 kids, so I really, really try to do it, but I also try to learn a little bit about them, or have a nickname or something that I can call them to relate to them, so that even if I don't know their exact name or exact spelling, I know something about them, or I can call them by some nickname. The other big thing is making sure that your classroom is set up to maximize your success, to manage your students. Make sure that you can see them. Make sure they can see you and what you're doing. That's huge. I know that also sounds like a no-brainer. Make it so that you can walk around the classroom, anywhere in the classroom that you have room to do it. I actually learned a great skill from a first-year teacher class that I had to take, where this one particular teacher has like 6 boxes of tissues at all time in 6 different areas of the room, so that there's no getting up to get a tissue, having to cross everybody in the room, distracting them, being able to talk to your friend, whatever. If you're in that corner, there's a tissue waiting there for you. So simple things like that can really, really limit distractions. And that's super important when it comes to classroom management, especially for middle school kids. And then I wanted to put this fun picture. I know that we are limited to just 10 minutes. I've been talking really fast and trying to get through. I think it's super important, if you're going to teach middle school, keep those principles of the middle school movement alive. Have relationships. It's all based on the student-teacher relationship. I honestly have found that some of the toughest kids in other classes, if I have a good relationship with them, or if I know something about them, or if I talk to them, 9 times out of 10, it makes it so much easier to deal with them, or they're your buddy, or they're your pal. And I mean, it's super important to build relationships, which is the foundation of the middle school movement. So I've included this fun picture too, my little 6th graders from last year. They're the best. But thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I hope you're having a fabulous February break. Enjoy, and nice working with you. Thanks. Bye.